Some people in this world are on the front lines of the struggle between good and evil, and some, like us, bear witness. I'm Therese Apel.
And I'm Nicole Crowell. You may have heard us as we worked on stories and series about law enforcement and crime. And it's safe to say we've seen some of the best and worst of human nature.
We decided there's no greater honor than bringing you the stories of the men and women who seek out the monsters, who speak for the victims, and who put the pieces together on some of the biggest Mississippi crime stories of our time. Welcome to Investigation Homicide. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Investigation Homicide. I am Therese Apel. Of course, I have both my co-hosts with me today, Nicole Crowell and Amanda Johansson.
Hey.
Hi, everyone.
So excited to be here.
Yeah.
Daniel's going to have fun. He's already switching between all of us. he's confused.
Oh,
Hi,
yeah,
I'm in the
hold on.
corner today.
So we are so excited because, of course, we have our favorites on our show, and this is one of our favorites, Detective Charlie Smith, retired JPD crime scene investigator, and he's here to tell us about a case that you might have seen if you were watching Snapped, the Oxygen show on Sunday. It's a Jackson case from several years ago, and this is one that Charlie worked absolutely firsthand, saw the whole thing. And so we're going to let him tell us the things that maybe we didn't learn on the show. So if you watched that show and you saw it this week, well, we all spent our time watching it this week too. So we all have our own questions, but feel free to jump in the comments and if you're watching live and ask whatever questions you have, because we have the man right here. Charlie, thank you for being here.
It's my pleasure.
So
Feel like I'm home.
yeah, I was going to say, we
At this
love
point,
having-
it kind of is your second home. It's like,
Yeah,
when
yeah.
you say Charlie's coming on, it's like season 4 of the
We're
show.
gonna have
You
to
just
get a plaque and name the chair.
yeah,
Yeah.
the Charlie
Aw.
Smith chair.
Yeah.
Well, unfortunately, I have a lot of, stories.
You do.
You
And
know.
that's
Jackson was a poppin' city back in the day.
That's right. And I think that's one of the reasons that we love having you here is you can give it a perspective that maybe a lot of other people don't have just because of the years that you spent and the era that you were here in Jackson. It was just a different we were just talking about a different world that it was.
It was a different time.
Mhm.
It was a different time. This particular case, it was a tough one. You know the TV show with 48 hours, solve murder, and which is true. If you don't do it, this ain't one of them.
Mhm.
This was months working this case. And it has some bizarre twists and turns.
Sure. So let's go ahead and go to that day. Get started. When do you get the call that you have a case, and what do you find when you get there?
Well, this all started. I actually had notes. I brought notes today because
We're
there's so
glad.
much.
he has a
on
whole
this
notebook,
case.
and he also has printouts.
I have
Yeah.
printout. I have my courtroom testimony here, which is about 20-something
absolutely.
pages. This started May the 24th, 1992.
Wow.
It was a Sunday afternoon. I got the call of a deceased subject because patrol had responded to the call, and there was a dead body at the scene. So they called the crime scene unit, which is protocol. And I go to the scene, and it is just a sterile scene, no forced entry. The only thing odd about it, there was a nude dead woman in the bathtub. And she hadn't been there very long, and
How do you know she hadn't been there very long?
rigors hadn't set in. Lividity was not present. She probably hadn't been dead more than 12 hours, maybe, if that much. She was in about 4 inches of water. The house was extremely neat. Like I said, no forced entry and all that. The patrol officers did a great job. They walked in and saw what it was, and they walked out, which is exactly what they're supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
The way she was found is her ex-husband and his wife had brought their 2 sons back to her that afternoon, and they knocked on the door, and the door was locked. Doors never locked, you know. They left a note on her car, which was in the driveway, which at the time they said was very strange. And they went to the next door neighbor who had a key to the house and told him, says, look, we went over there, can't get Gail. If you see her, tell her to call us. So after they left, the neighbor got kind of concerned, so he took his key, and he's the one that made the initial find. And so as I was looking at her, I noticed that she had a small bruise on the inside of her left ankle. She had frothing around her mouth, and there was blood coming from her nose in the water. And I'm talking like 3 inches of water, 4 inches of water maybe. And her legs were out of the tub, but the body was in the tub. There was, like I said, there was no signs there was a struggle. And, when I saw the blood, normally, I mean, really, I could have just walked away and said, oh, well, okay, yeah, this is just a dead woman, no big deal, and not call homicide. But I just had a really bad feeling this was something more than what it appeared to be.
So when you find her like this, it seemed to me, now I've never tried to drown myself in a tub, but it seemed to me that even the position seemed weird.
It did, and I'll give you a little fact, and people may disagree with me, but one of the most world-renowned pathologists would tell you, you can't drown yourself in a bathtub in 4 inches of water. Your body will not let you do it.
Right.
It will fight you and fight you and fight you.
Even if you're unconscious.
Well, if you're unconscious, that's a different story because you're going to inhale water. You're going to drown. But if you're conscious, you're not going. You can't.
If you're trying to drown yourself.
If you're trying to drown yourself, you're not. It's not going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Not going to happen. And I looked in her bedroom, and I found some medications that were indicative of someone that was being medicated for depression. She had a journal. I won't go into what was in the journal, but it was obviously she was in a depressed mode. She'd been divorced. She had recently been in a relationship that went south, and she was upset about that. And it sadly, it was I think a lot of it is she was in a gay relationship with another woman.
And at that time, that wouldn't have been something
That's
she
taboo.
could have confided in anybody with.
Talk about that back then. People would be out there burning your house down.
Yeah.
And I think that was a lot of it. Obviously, she was clinically depressed. I mean, all the indicators were there that she committed suicide.
Well, and to be fair to her, to have all that going on in your life and not to be depressed in some way or another would be unusual.
Yeah. So I called homicide, called the coroner, and because in these kind of cases, the crime scene is mine. The homicide case belongs to the Homicide Bureau, but the body belongs to the coroner. You don't touch the body.
That was something I learned in the show because you had said that in the show.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's an interesting way to think about it.
Yeah. You never touch that body. The only time we would maybe touch a body is if we were trying, if it was laying there, if we didn't have to disturb it, if we could get a wallet out for identification. That's the only time we ever touch a body until the coroner gets there and gives his
or her
permission. And her was a good coroner.
Yeah.
And him,
was maybe.
We'll get into that.
So before we get into that, and before we move
Yeah.
to you contacting homicide, I think it's safe to assume that the body was face up because you said that you could see the frothing of the mouth.
She was face down.
She was face down. So how could you see the frothing of the mouth
I
and the
could
blood?
see the blood. She was kind of tilted like that, and I could see the
Okay.
blood leaking through. I could see the frothing, which indicate that the body was struggling for oxygen.
Okay. And then what was the significance to you for the bruise on the ankle?
To me, the bruise on the ankle indicated somebody was holding her.
Gotcha.
And that was anytime you work a case like this, I don't care if it's a 92-year-old woman that's died of terminal cancer, and if the police are called, you work it as a homicide until otherwise proven. There have been many cases screwed up because police officers assume, the simple thing. And there's one I can tell you about that really got blown up. But anyhow, I get homicide out, and Detective Al Ledoux was the homicide. He was the lead on the homicide on this case. Al's a great guy, great homicide detective. And our coroner came out there. Now, I'm working the crime scene in the process, but I'm trying not to disturb anything for the homicide guys. Basically, I'm doing hundreds of photographs, and I'm waiting for them to get out there. And I'll take some Polaroids and stuff like that and give them to the homicide detective. This is what we got. So things progressed. I mean, it's a long time out there. Finally, everybody shows up, and we go through all the procedures. We identify who she is. Obviously, the neighbor knew who she was. Excuse me. And the coroner got there, and this is where things really kind of went to hell.
To put it simply.
Right.
Yeah, he gets there, and let me back up a minute. The only thing that we found in the house that even remotely appeared, there was a struggle. There was a picture that evidently had been hanging on the wall, but there were several pictures. Evidently she was like in the process of hanging pictures at some time, and there was this one picture, and it was on the floor, leaned against some other pictures, and it was face in, but we were looking at it, and the glass was shattered. That's it. That's the only thing that we had that would indicate something went wrong in that house. And this is I think this is the reason I got cued in on the fact that I was convinced that it was a homicide. Is the place was too damn neat. She even had her change of clothes folded up neatly on the toilet. Now, I don't know how women do it, but other than my wife, but when you're taking a shower or a bath, you don't fold up your clothes like that and put it on the toilet.
Absolutely.
Because you're going to get out and you're going to be drying off, and But anyhow, that little thing cued me in too. And first thing we thought maybe an overdose, but she had the pills, all her antidepressants and all that the bottles were basically full. Mm-hmm. So I thought, there is a possibility maybe she overdosed and she was going to take a bath and it hit her and she fell out. I couldn't buy that. And the homicide Detective Ledoux, he asked me, he said, "What do you think?" I said, "I think this is a murder." And I said, "I don't know how." I said, "There's something here that we're missing. I can't put my finger on it, but something's not right here." Well, the coroner comes, and he just kind of does a cursory search of the scene of the body, and he immediately says, well, when he saw the antidepressants and the journal, he flat said, "Oh, it's a suicide." And I looked at him and I said, "Are you kidding me?" He said, "Oh, it's suicide. It's classic suicide." And
spoiler alert, we wouldn't be here if it was a suicide.
Yeah.
So what's next?
Yeah. And I just looked at him and I said, I said, "Are you going to stick with that?" And he said, I just said to him, "How can you just come up and say this is a suicide without any?" He said, "Because I say it is." Mm. And I looked at Al and I said, "We're in trouble."
Yeah.
Because the coroner, if your coroner rules it something other than homicide, you're pretty much dead in the water. You can't go to court. You can't go to trial with the coroner saying, "Well," so anyhow, things. And, let me back. Another thing on a homicide case, an autopsy is always done on a homicide case. Mm-hmm. But if it's an accidental death or a suicide, no autopsy. And the family can request an autopsy, but as it turns out, the only members of the family that cared were two little boys about 7 and 9 years old.
That autopsy is also at the expense of the family.
That's
because
right.
They requested it.
If they requested it, it's at their expense. They have to get a pathologist.
How much does an autopsy cost?
Well, it depends on the
At the time,
level of the pathologist. Most people, what few times I've seen outside pathologist comes in, to get a clinical pathologist and get a board certified forensic pathologist are two different things. And but I just, like I said, I had a real bad feeling. Al and I both had a feeling, and we just said, this is not a suicide. This is not an accident. And I was so concerned the fact that we did our scene process, and I took like 300 or 400 photographs of the scene. I wanted to make sure that we had everything that I could do. We had no physical evidence of an intruder or anything like that, no forced entry, and the only thing we had was the broken picture. That's it.
Well, and let me ask you this too, because I took criminal justice classes in college. I, didn't know what I wanted to do. Might have wanted to be a cop. I didn't know, so I took all the classes. And one of the things that we learned, and they said it has changed through the years, but that when women commit suicide, they're a lot less likely to do something that's not
Bloody.
modest. Yeah, so you're not going to shoot yourself in the head. You're not going to be
Right.
dressed in your skivvies. You're probably not going to be naked. Was that a part of your thought train?
Yeah,
also?
because in my my years as a police officer and crime scene investigator, I never worked a female suicide where she did violence on herself.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I worked one in South Jackson, and I'm still, to this day, I'm convinced that her boyfriend shot her. But we never could prove it. But she was shot in the chest.
Mm-hmm.
Not going to be a head wound.
Right.
But now a guy's going to blow his head all over the room.
Right.
And that was another thing. And I said, well, if she was going to overdose, most of the overdose females I've worked, they just take all their pills and lay in the bed and wait for the end.
Yeah.
This didn't happen. She's not going to take a bunch of pills. Well, I'm going to kill myself. I'm going to take all these pills. I'm going to take a bath first.
Right.
It's not going to happen.
Face down.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I on the show, they showed her with her feet looking like she was face up, but when
And
you
they
said
did,
face
yeah.
down,
And she's face down.
That changes things.
100%.
And I think it was staged to make it look like she took a nosedive into the tub while
Like
she
she
was getting
fell
ready.
or something.
Pardon me?
Like she fell into the
Yeah.
tub. See, I feel like that would have been my first thought,
Yeah.
is she was just getting ready to get into the tub, because my mom is probably watching, but she broke her ankle one time.
Yeah.
She was changing the curtain rod, but it is slippery in there. And,
Yeah, it is.
You
It
know,
is. I mean,
anything
at
can
that
happen,
point-
and then it would prove the bruise on the ankle too if she hit it on
But the water would have still been running.
oh, that's true.
If someone is
exactly.
preparing a bath
Our
and
investigator
then they
there.
slip and fall,
See, that's why
you would have a whole bunch of water everywhere.
And
So-
head
I mean,
trauma.
that's a good point, Amanda.
Yeah.
Well, we all had a bad feeling about this case, and but it basically just kind of went nowhere for a while. And I think about 4 months later, a young lady. Let me look at my notes.
Sure.
Let me refer to
This
my
is
notes.
he's multiple
Vicky
pages of
Mordecai
notes.
goes to the FBI headquarters on a Sunday afternoon in Jackson.
Now I did catch that because I was like, "Wow!" If I tried to go to the FBI headquarters on a
You
Sunday
couldn't get
afternoon,
in.
no,
I don't know how
couldn't
in
even
the
get past
hell
that.
I
that
didn't
happened.
catch that. That's hilarious.
And but she goes to the FBI and she tells a story that she and her husband Ricky Mordecai. This is another thing I don't think I'd admit to the FBI. They were running an illegal marijuana patch up in around Yazoo County, and their crop had gotten stolen, and they were in cahoots with her stepdad, and they were concerned. The stepdad had made some threats against them about the marijuana crop. If y'all don't know, in the 80s and 90s, Yazoo County was the marijuana capital of Mississippi.
I believe that.
And so she was concerned that he was going to hire someone to kill them because he knew some seedy people. And she said that she had heard her stepfather talking about a guy who said he'd already been down to Jackson and killed a woman in Jackson, and said something about they broke a glass, a picture frame. So the FBI, well, and we had never we didn't release any information about the crime scene at all. So
Yeah,
nobody knew.
there was no point
There was
because
no
it was
point.
ruled a suicide.
And
But that didn't make the news.
we wouldn't have released anything anyhow.
Yeah.
But so they call Homicide, and Homicide says, hey, we want to talk to Vicky. And they go and talk to Vicky. And one thing led to another. And they began to learn that the new wife, Debbie, was pure evil. This woman is Satan wrapped up in a woman's skin. She had been intimidating Gail, threatening her, and actually 2 weeks before Gail was murdered, she had told her sister that she didn't feel safe. She thought something was going to happen.
So you're getting this information from Vicky?
This did,
From the FBI?
yeah, Vicky. Well, this is what we found out later on during the investigation.
Gotcha.
Things,
Okay.
talking to other family members and all that.
Okay.
And talking to Gail's sister. She had, I think, two sisters, and the sisters had said, "Look, Debbie is, she's evil." And also during the investigation, found out that Debbie had a previous marriage and had a severely handicapped child that had mysteriously died in the bathtub.
Yeah, that part I was like,
Yeah,
oh man,
the-
how many times
The
can
thick plottings. And so
We're gonna steal that.
Yeah.
they get they work in this case, and they go talk to Vicky, talk to Ricky Mordecai, and they agree to wear a wire. And so they go and they talk to the nefarious father-in-law. What is his name? I can't remember his name. Roy Kyle. And but he never really gives them any information about a murder. He just kind of lets them know that he knows people. And so they got Debbie's phone records. Found out she'd been calling a guy named Billy Ray Cobb. I think that's his name.
I think it is.
What was it? Billy Ray Ford. I'm sorry, Billy Ray Ford. And got to checking Billy Ray Ford's background, and he had a really salty background. He'd actually been arrested for attempted murder of Paul Barrett, who was the Warren County Sheriff. The case went nowhere because they didn't have substantial proof. And it is our belief that old Billy has killed several other people in his background. He is, to jump ahead, but when they did a search warrant on his house, he lived on Booger Den Hollow Road up in Yazoo County.
Wow, that sounds like a Yazoo County
Yeah,
road.
I mean, we're going down that road, and I joked to one of the homicide detectives. I said, "Did y'all hear banjo music?"
right.
And we'd already made the rest. But anyhow, after the phone records were pulled, and we found out that Debbie had been talking to Mr. Ford back and forth. She denied it first, but then then it caught up with her. I don't know this guy, never heard of him. But she'd had several phone calls with him, been talking to him for several weeks. So what happened, evidently what happened is Richard, the ex-husband, and Ford, the murderer, they go to Gail's house the night before, or this May the 23rd. And they knock on the door. She looks through the peephole, and she sees her no good ex-husband, which they actually had a pretty good relationship. But now things got really bad with even though they were divorced, they had a good relationship up until she started her affair with the other woman. And evidently Debbie was getting in the middle of it, stirring things up, and she created a hate atmosphere. And
Well, I think I remember in the episode that the kids also said that
yeah,
the living situation between the two was very different. Where they lived with their mother, it was full of
Yeah.
love and joy, and they felt comfortable there. And then when it was at their dad and step or whoever, whatever
yeah,
she
Debbie
was to them,
I think Debbie just outright hated Gail. She
Yeah.
hated anything about Gail, didn't want to hear her name. She hated the fact that Gail kept her last name, but that was her son's name, so she was going to
crazy behavior.
Well,
Well,
and
yeah.
I feel like we need to issue a little warning to the men out there. Like, whoever you choose
Yeah.
to be the stepmother to your children
Not kidding.
could end up like causing you all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So as it turns out, what happened is they go to the house, and allegedly, Debbie had originally said that she didn't say anything to Kyle about I want her dead. I just want her taken care of. I want her intimidated.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
I
Which is
didn't
always-
know what was
Yeah, I
going to
I
happen.
didn't really say murder.
I just wanted them to scare her.
Yeah, I wanted
Yeah.
to scare her. And so anyhow, they show the ex-husband and the murderer show up at the house, knock on the door. She peeps through and sees the ex-husband, so she lets him in. Well, she didn't know that Ford was hiding on the door. And the show missed this part, but what happened is the husband got her attention kind of inside the house. Ford comes up behind her. And this is something that I caught. Not that I'm a great investigator, but I caught that he had put a rag over her face. Now, we don't know. We think the rag was probably soaked with chloroform or something like that. And he basically smothered her. And in that process, the picture with the broken glass, it wasn't broken before, but it got broken during the struggle. That was the only thing. And he got her unconscious. They put some water in the tub. And my theory is that, they had her face down in the tub and Ford holds her legs up. I'll be honest with you, I'm not sure Richard didn't do some of it too.
Sure.
He's a bastard too.
Right.
And she died. But, when I found out there was not going to be an autopsy or anything like that, I was really concerned about it. I went to the funeral home and I took what we call ALS, alternate light source, with me and took some more pictures of the body. Now, this is a unique thing about a dead body. Any bruising or anything on a dead body I'll usually highlight after livor mortis, not rigor mortis, livor mortis sets in. And I noticed what I thought through using an alternate light source, that I could see a little fabric pattern right around her nose that would be consistent with like a shop rag or something like that. And I took some pictures of that. And
Now on the show, it talked about an abrasion, but this is actually what you were seeing seemed to have a pattern to it.
yeah, it had a pattern right here, but now she did have abrasion on her nose, not much. Not like she was cold cocked or anything like that, but she did have a abrasion. But what I saw was like a fabric pattern right here and on the nose, just like somebody was pressing this rag on her face. And that's purely subjective because,
You're looking for something, and
yeah,
so it's
yes,
possible
you're exactly
that-
right. I'm looking for something.
Right.
Well, Cynthia Speechin, who is a wonderful district attorney, she and Tommy Mayfield, they're great. They're great ADAs. We all go up there. We have a meeting at the DA's office and trying to figure out where this is going to go. And basically, it came down to we were all under the agreement that we didn't have anything. We didn't have any real proof. This is what somebody's saying, and you can't go to court with that. So Cynthia decided let's just go ahead and get an indictment for conspiracy and see what happens. It's kind of like throwing, spaghetti against the wall and see what sticks. And she went ahead. She and Tommy got an indictment for conspiracy to commit capital murder. And so we got the indictment. Well, they got the indictment and went to a prelim, and they were released on bond. And we still understood that we had a serious problem with the coroner, because he's still, this is a suicide. He wouldn't budge.
Even after he's heard that there may be
He
a
didn't care.
hitman, even after.
He didn't care. He wasn't going to listen to that. I mean,
That would have made him look bad if he had to change.
exactly. And I had a weird thing on my work on the police department. I never let friendship interfere with a case. I mean, I think I'm the only police officer in JPD. I put my own partner in jail one night, so that tells you how I am. And
we need to hear that story later too.
You'll have to feed us that later.
He was my best friend, and I loved him like a brother.
Uh-huh.
But he screwed up.
Yeah.
But so the only thing we could come up with, we got to get an outside pathologist. Mm-hmm. And the DA's office, they'd already had a working relationship with Dr. Michael Biden, and I had been through a couple of his classes, and to like a NASCAR junkie, sitting in a room with Richard Petty is like sitting with God. Somebody like me sitting and talking to Michael Biden, that's just, that's great. That's phenomenal.
I got to interview him over the phone in like 2011 for a case.
Yeah.
And I still count that as like a major deal, because Michael Biden, for those of you that don't follow this stuff, or maybe because if you follow true crime, you know who that is. Yep. You don't even have to explain. But if you don't, he is the godfather of medical examiners.
He is. He was the medical examiner for the New York City. That's where he got his.
And the godfather was the correct word to use.
Yeah, exactly. And when Cynthia called, I don't know if Cynthia called him or Ed Peters called him and contacted him, and he bit like a bass after a topwater bait.
Yeah. He
was ready. And so we got, Cynthia and them got a court order to exhume the body. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't much left. What we were looking for was traces of chloroform, or maybe a broken larynx, which is real easy in a strangulation case.
Well, and let me ask you this too, before you go any further. So when we talk about true crime, sometimes it's just like, and then we exhumed the body and we found such and such. But it took a lot to get that done, didn't it? That's not something you just do.
Mm-mm. You don't just do it. And
people think that's taboo. Like, a judge does not want to sign off on an order to disturb the resting place of someone.
If it's a case like this.
Yeah, but typically that's where a judge, they're like, oh,
and after,
a body?
I hate to be crass, but after you've been in the ground for several months, there ain't a whole lot left.
Sure.
Right.
All these people do all this stuff for a funeral. If they've seen the dead bodies that I've seen, you realize, that's a waste of money. Mm-hmm. And really couldn't find anything on the autopsy. Not what we were wanting to find, but basically Dr. Biden, he and I went over my pictures and all that, and he went over the physical evidence that we had, which was nothing. But basically he was able to pretty much conclude with the pictures that, he immediately said, this is not a suicide or accidental death. He said, this is a homicide. And he said any idiot would know that you can't drown yourself in 3 inches of water in a bathtub.
Which is exactly what you said.
Yeah, I learned it from him.
Right.
And so things kind of progressed. We finally wound up going to trial, and got to change the venue down to the coast and all that. Well, the murderer sees things are going bad, and he decides, I think I'll work a deal. I'll rat everybody else out. Plus the fact they had cheated him out of the $5,000 they were supposed to pay him. That
Oh,
ca-
yeah, that'll do it.
It
Yeah, I'll do
always
it.
comes down to
It
money.
comes down to the money. And he ratted on Debbie and that worthless husband. And even as he is on the witness stand, basically confessing to the murder, the coroner is still sticking to it's a suicide. The defense, I mean, it's terrible when the district attorney has to get an outside coroner to come and I can't think of a good word for
Clean
it.
up the mess, basically.
Basically, yeah, to disqualify your own coroner and medical and pathologist.
But at that point, he knew he messed up, and he knew it would
He wasn't
look
going to admit
bad.
it.
No, he was
and
not going to admit
like I
it.
said, he and I got along for years up until that point. And like I said, after that, it was a frosty relationship between he and I.
Well, and I feel like I should add here, because one of the drums that I beat when I teach my class for media folks, for
Yeah.
public information officers, is don't lie, don't lie, don't lie. And the other one is like, if you make a mistake, admit it. And the problem is this coroner's legacy is now that he wouldn't, I mean, it's his pride, as opposed
Yep.
to if he would have come back and said, you know what, I think I messed that up. We wouldn't be talking about that.
No,
I mean,
and also
it
to
might come up that,
to the general public, it makes me think that I'm like, who's he colluding with?
right, like it makes him look
It
so
was-
shady.
so bad.
I don't know. I think a lot of it, and I'm not justifying his actions over this. Like I said, he and I were friends. I'd been to his house. My kids used to go up and ride his horses. I mean, we were
Yeah.
friends. Not after this. And I think over the years of doing so much, it had just wore on him, I guess. I don't know. But he just had the attitude that it's my word. I'm the guy here, and most of your listeners probably don't realize this. The only thing that qualifies you to be a coroner in Mississippi, you got to be of voting age. That's
Yep.
it.
Yep.
That's it.
I was just literally, while you were talking, I was thinking, I was like, well, I wonder how you become a coroner, because my fiance
You run for office.
yeah, and that's it.
Oh, of
And
course, I had to add salt to the wound a few years later. We were on a case, and I didn't agree with what he said on this case. And I said, one of these days somebody's going to run against you. He said, ain't nobody going to run against me. I said, well, I might run against you. And and I was sitting in the office, and I was thinking about it, and I didn't have any money, and my partner was there. I said, let me borrow $10. And I go over to the courthouse, and I put my $10 down, and I ran against him. I didn't mean to, anything by it. I just did it, just to show him, it can be done. And but nobody cares about the coroner's race.
Right.
Nobody gives a flip about it at all.
I'm going to care a lot more now.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and but anyhow, the case went on, and the murderer pled guilty, and he was sentenced to life. They took the death penalty off the table. The husband pled; he got life, and Debbie, she's went to trial because I'm a sweet little girl and all that. And I can look. I'm sitting there testifying. I'm looking at that jury. I said, "I ain't gonna hang her." And I mean, you can just read a jury.
Yeah.
When they're listening to you, you know that they're going after you. And they found her guilty on capital murder, but they deadlocked on the death penalty, because in a death penalty case, you have the trial, and if you get convicted for capital murder, then you have to retry the sentencing phase. And they just could not bring themselves to give her the death penalty. And she got life.
So we know she didn't like Gail, but for lack of a better way to put it, what was her deal?
Money.
I told
Okay.
you, it's always about the money.
It basically all came down to her bitter hatred to Gail, and plus a whopping $1,200 a month in Social Security benefits that would have gone to the boys if their mother was dead.
Yeah.
Plus, the husband wouldn't have to pay $650 a month child support. So basically, for $2,000 a month, this woman ruined almost half a dozen lives.
So how do you, this is like, what kind of crazy pillow talk were they having when they're like, babe, should we murder your ex-wife?
Right.
Like, who brought this up? Who approached who?
I'm gonna say it was Debbie. She's the catalyst of the whole thing.
And she's just so convincing and so manipulative
I
that
don't-
he
yeah,
was just like,
there
I'm
you go.
not going to do that.
She's the manipulator. I think that her husband Richard, I even hate to mention his name. You know, she could have told him to go, jump into a burn pit, and he would have done it. She just had that control over him.
Well,
But-
even you would know that she's the mastermind because
She is.
it's the exact same
Yep.
way her
Yep.
child had died.
Exactly. And that's what we were talking about at the DA's office. When we found out that she'd had and the way we found out about the death is her former husband saw that she had been arrested on this murder. And he came forward and said, hey, we had 2 children at one time. And the child that died was severely handicapped, wheelchair bound, and just basically a semi-vegetative state.
Yeah.
And Debbie even actually tried to blow it off that she drowned in a bath while the other child was allegedly watching her. And I think you could have knocked Cynthia Speechin out of her chair with a feather when we found that out.
Sure.
I mean, what are the odds? 2 people drowning in a bathtub, and they're all related to the same woman.
Yeah, in this
in a way.
room, aside from this case, does anybody know someone who's drowned in a bathtub?
No.
Much less 2.
No. No,
You know.
I've worked one fatality involving a bathtub, and as you were talking about, it was slippery. As a man who slipped in the bathtub, fell through the glass door.
Oh,
Yeah.
jeez. Yeah.
And
Yeah, even thinking law enforcement, I
Yeah.
don't think I've ever worked
Yeah.
a drowning in a bathtub.
You're not.
And how would that's some details that she had to have told Billy Ray. Was that
Billy
his
Ray.
name? Billy Ray. She had to have told him that.
Yeah.
How would he have known that is how?
Well, it is our
This is
deep
weird.
belief that old Billy Ray, this ain't his first rodeo.
Oh, yeah.
He's killed other people. There's no doubt in my mind. And this is the weird thing about Billy Ray. I even hate to say this. He's kind of a likable guy. He's just a murderer. He's just a good old boy.
He's an entrepreneur.
He's an entrepreneur. I think he served a whopping 12 years.
Right.
And this gets even weirder. He got out in 12 years. He and Richard got out at the same time, which in my opinion, I think they should have locked Richard and Debbie up in the same cell together.
Made them live with each
Made
other.
them live with each other in an 8x10 cell together, because eventually they'd have killed each other.
Right.
She'd have probably killed him. Because, I worked a lot of murders where it was like crack dealer or drug dealers and all that. And, it's one of them, he needed killing deals. I mean,
Right.
but my wife and I go to a restaurant like in 2008. I won't name the restaurant, but it's a buffet restaurant. We said, let's go eat there. And we're going down there because this is what Billy Ray did. He was a cook. He worked the oil fields as a cook and the oil offshore and stuff like that. And we're going down the buffet line, and there he is.
Stop it.
Oh, wow.
And I looked at him and I said, and I blurted out, I said, you son of a bitch. I said, are you out?
What?
And I was already reaching for my gun.
Yeah.
And he said, he recognized me. He said, I got out a year ago. And I looked at my wife and said, that's it. We left our tray sitting right there, and we walked out. And my wife said, what's wrong? I said, I'll tell you when we get in the car. And people look in the restaurant, they think we're crazy. I mean, I blurted it out. I mean,
Little
my first
do they
thought was
know.
he escaped.
Right. Right.
And I just blurted out. I said, are you out? And he was easy to recognize. And if he bent over, he's got a big old eagle tattooed to the back of his head.
Oh, jeez.
And
You got to earn some kind of street cred with a name like Billy Ray.
Yeah.
Right.
And he and Richard did 12 years, I believe. Now, Debbie, she did 20, because at that time, life in Mississippi didn't mean life.
No.
Yeah.
Now it do,
Yeah.
but it didn't then. But she got out after 26 years, and I hope she's alive and having a rotten life. I hope she gets ass cancer or something like that. But she is sheer evil.
Sure.
That
I
sounds
mean,
like that
there's
would
no doubt in
blow.
my mind that she killed her own child.
Right.
Was that ever can you go back and
Not really,
reinvestigate
because
stuff like that? Or
I don't know exactly. I can't remember exactly where it happened.
Right.
I'm trying to think.
Jurisdiction wise, it wasn't y'all's jurisdiction though.
No, it wasn't our jurisdiction at all.
Right.
And it's probably just one of these police departments that didn't have a bunch of jerks like me and Al Adu and the others wanting to find something else nefarious going on. They accepted it on face value. Oh, yeah, okay, well, we'll write it up. Let's go. Where are you going to eat tonight? And that's basically it.
Yeah.
And, yeah, I have no doubt she killed that child.
Mm-hmm.
I have no doubt whatsoever. That's sheer evil. And I've worked several parents who killed their children before.
Right.
And that's just evil beyond evil. And I don't know. But I don't remember the boys that much. I remember them at the trial.
Yeah.
I mean, they were just little boys then. I mean, they're grown men nowadays. And I saw them on TV. I wouldn't know them if they walked up to me. But,
Yeah.
I saw one. He made the comment on the show that they thought it was a suicide. And I want to tell them, I said, no, they didn't.
Yeah.
You know, we the coroner did, but we didn't.
Yeah, don't group
Yeah.
everybody together with the one person that made the bad decision and refused to accept responsibility.
there was absolutely no doubt in my mind. I mean, I may have had. I went home that night and I was thinking about possibilities. What could it have been? And I kept bouncing back to homicide.
Yeah.
And Al was the same way. We just kept thinking the scenario, and the only scenario that we could come up with is, again, maybe she did take a lot of drugs, and she was getting ready for a bath, and it got to her and plop, she fell in the tub.
But you know what would have helped prove or disprove that? Doing an autopsy or at
Right.
least toxicology.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
none of
yeah.
that was done.
No.
None of that was done.
And, I do think it's worth mentioning, though, that for y'all to have been able to put this case together long after the fact,
Yep.
without a real, I mean, you had a corpse, but not a good one. You didn't have toxicology. You didn't have an autopsy. You had a hostile coroner. You had all this going
Yeah.
on. And for y'all to put it together, that is real good old school police work.
Well, I'll be honest with you, the Hines County District Attorney of today couldn't do it.
No.
They wouldn't do it.
They wouldn't
No,
do it.
they would
They would
not.
not do it. But the district attorney's office we had then, like I said, Cynthia Speechins, if you ever get a chance, you've met her,
I don't know if I
Really?
have. Yeah, I'd
She-
love to.
is top notch. She's top notch. We were all in love with her anyhow. She was just great. She would listen to all, and she was like us. She wanted to go. She'd go after you, tooth and nail. She didn't back off. She was a good ADA. I was hoping that at one time she would actually run for district attorney of Hines County. She would have been, but I don't. She wasn't a politician. She was a good ADA.
The best prosecutors are not politicians.
Exactly. And so between her and Tommy Mayfield and Al Adu, and it just came. We just would not give up. I mean, it took a long time, and a lot of departments were just saying, "The hell with this. Let's go to the next case."
Right.
But Al wasn't going to give up either, and he was just Al was just that kind of guy. He was just a good. And he started out his detective world in juvenile, and I used to see him do juvenile cases. He was great. I mean, there's no way in the world I'd work juvenile. I'd want to slap those kids across the room,
Right.
But Al was a great guy. He actually left the police department because he told me, he said, "I'm not really helping anybody." And he became a nurse,
Oh, wow.
and unfortunately he succumbed to cancer several years ago. And he fought that for years, but Al was just a great guy, and he just was not going to give up on that case. And he and I would sit there and talk. We'd go out to eat supper, and we didn't talk about hunting and fishing and all that. We'd go back to this case.
Sure.
And waiting for something to break. And had it not been for the little marijuana field, it probably would not have broke. Even Cynthia said, even when we listened to, I was up there when we listened to the wiretap, we were all sitting there going, crap, we didn't get anything.
Yeah.
Not what we wanted. And but old Billy Ray, he, like I said, when the going got tough, if they'd have paid him the $5,000, he probably wouldn't have said a word. But I don't think he really wanted to go to jail. Mm-hmm. But and this is a kicker. Even his time in jail, most of it was spent at the Hinds County Jail as a cook.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I imagine they don't have a whole lot of really good cooks there.
No, he was a cook, evidently a good one. But like I said, when we went to that restaurant, and I almost had a stroke, and I wanted to tell everybody, "Hey guys, this guy here, he's a murderer,
Like probably multiple murderer.
Yeah, probably murder. I'm pretty sure he's killed other people. There's no doubt.
Right.
He if you just seen his house up in Booger Hollow Den Road or Booger Den Hollow Road in Yazoo County, and we got a lot. This is before GPS. We were asking people in Yazoo County, where is it? They never heard of it.
Wow.
We just had to stumble on it.
Yeah.
And we finally found it and did the search warrant. And and I was with some really tough guys that were in the car. I mean, these were some serious police. And one of them looked at me and said, I got a bad feeling about even going down this road. Yeah. And
well, city cops in the country, that's a little different.
yeah. And I mean, one of the guys I was picking, Charlie Crisco, he was a Marine NAM vet. And that's when I said something. I said, you guys hear banjo music? He said, Charlie, you say one more word, I'm going to throw you out of this car.
Right.
And so it was an uneasy feeling.
Sure.
And, but it came together. But I like I said, all credit goes to Cynthia Speeching, in my opinion. Her and Tommy Mayfield. You go to them with a case that's even marginal, they're gonna work with you, and they're gonna go to town.
Awesome. Well, Charlie, before we go, any thoughts on anything we wouldn't have known to ask you, or even how did Oxygen do on the documentary? Do you feel like they did a good job?
In the time span they did, like I said, they interviewed me for like 2.5 hours, and they interviewed Cynthia for 4 hours. And she was the case. She made the case. I just worked on it. Right. It was like building a house. I was just the framer. Mm-hmm. She was the one that put the roof on it. And yeah, I think they did pretty good. Like I said, I had never even heard of this show. Had no idea. And I didn't even realize I had the Oxygen channel on my streaming network. And I don't even know how I'm gonna watch this thing, because the producer called me about 3 or 4 days, maybe a week before. I think when I texted you, maybe.
Sure.
And told me that it was going to be on. I said, well, that's great. Or told my wife. I said, I didn't know how to watch it.
Good thing we all found it.
Well, I got to stumbling around, and I said, I found where I could record it, because it came on, I'm old. I go to bed early, but I also, I get up at 2 o'clock in the morning and go bicycle riding.
Yeah.
I'm riding at 2 o'clock in the morning. So I was going to be asleep by the time that thing came on.
Sure.
So I recorded it, and I watched it the other day. And I watched it again today to kind of get some cobwebs shaken loose, because I had totally forgotten about Debbie's background with her deceased child.
Sure.
And until I saw the show. And but all the other cases, I still remember everything about the case, working it and all that. And but now this is a kicker here. Of the 300 and something pictures that I took, I even made a drawing of the layout of the house. I marked everything. The one picture I didn't take was of the broken picture.
Oh, wow.
How I missed that, I don't know. And I can tell you, John Kitchens, the defense attorney, he nailed me on the witness stand about that picture. Right. He told me he was going to do it, and I love Kitchens. He was a great guy.
Yeah.
I always said if I ever got arrested, he'd be the attorney I would call. You
said John Kitchens?
Yeah. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he was just great. He was just great. And he picked on me for years after that. He said, "You seen any more broken pictures?" You know?
You made that up, didn't you?
I just missed that.
Yeah.
I had to go back to or get another one of the guys from the crime scene to bring me some more film. I was so concerned this case was going to go down the toilet.
Yeah.
And I said, the only thing we're going to have is a pile of pictures, and that's it. And like I said, Michael Biden. Luckily, I took enough pictures, and Biden was able to lay them out, and look at them. I sat with him, and it was like watching the master at work.
Yeah.
And but when Cynthia told him the circumstances of the case over the phone, he basically said, "Oh hell, that's a murder.
Yeah,
you have a murder. I'm in."
Yeah, I love it that he was involved in this. Okay, Amanda, closing thoughts.
Well, I'm glad that you mentioned the fact that even the defense attorney, although he had a job to do, he was even, I'm not going to say he was on board, but you had a relationship with him.
Yeah.
Everyone plays a role and everyone's on a team. And when I watched the episode, as soon as they told me, because obviously they're just talking to me,
Right.
as soon as I heard that the coroner ruled it a suicide, my blood was boiling. And I think that I have that type of visceral reaction because that kind of stuff, and I'm not talking about coroner specifically, but the people that you think are on your team that are a part of the system that is supposed to get justice and the truth are so inept when it comes to their own ego and their own pride.
Yeah, and that's me. It's like I told somebody once, I said, I'm a aggravating son of a bitch, but I'm the same aggravating son of a bitch to everybody.
Yeah.
You know, black, white, male, female. You can ask any of the officers that used to work for me. Juan, Chloe, I'll tell you in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
But my ego is just kind of way down there on the bottom level. I never let it get in the way of the work. And the victim is the primary, we are the last advocate of the victim. And without us, there's no voice. And
y'all solved this case despite the coroner.
I don't care. I don't care whose toes I'm going to step on, who I'm going to make mad, or whatever. I've never been one to hold my tongue. I've got in trouble about it before, and but I'm not one to hold back. I'm unbridled.
I think you and I are very similar in some way.
But when you're working these cases, these murder cases like this, especially these whodunits, you just got to be that way. You got to be hard boiled, and you've got to not care who you piss off. And I can assure you, I have stepped on some toes. And like I said, the coroner, he hated me. He literally wrote a letter to the mayor trying to get me fired or reassigned and everything else.
Imagine standing so hard on your ego that you're trying to get somebody fired for something you were wrong about.
Yeah. And Internal Affairs had launched a little investigation on it. I've been in Internal Affairs 3 times on myself in a 30-year career, and that was one of them.
Yeah.
And they asked me, I said, well, look, I said, he was wrong. I mean, that's the bottom line. And he made some accusations against me that I had interfered with him before, which I had when I would think that this isn't right. This isn't right. And like I said, up to that point, he and I had a great working relationship. But after that, didn't exist. And I'm sorry.
Yeah, those things happen.
But Gail got a little justice, not much. And her boys, I feel for them. She was a loving mother, from all indications, and she raised them right. Yeah. And it was a tragedy.
Absolutely.
Like I said, for $1,800 a month.
Right. Nicole, closing thoughts?
Don't do that. And I just want to thank you, Charlie. I think when we get to see you here in the podcast, it's always a treat. And it always reminds me of, like we talked about before, the old school policing, which I've never actually seen, right? Because everything that I've seen is just what I've learned from Therese the past 5 years in the police world. And I think that it really shows how you guys paid attention to detail and you were diligent And when you had an opinion, you fought for it. And I really appreciate that about you.
Thank you.
And I'm just really grateful to be able to hear your stories.
Well, I had great training officers. I had great partners, and I learned well. And I wouldn't take $1.25 for it. I wish some of these younger officers nowadays would kind of look at the old ways,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
And technology is great, but I think they rely on it too much. You can use it, but don't let it run your day.
Don't let it be all there is.
And because police work, a lot of the techniques I use on crime scene and stuff like that, I literally dug out of a 1939, I think, FBI handbook. I had found it somewhere. I can't remember where I found it. And I read it, and I said, this is pretty good stuff. But it still applies to today. Crime scene, and it still goes down to crimes are solved by shoe leather.
Mm-hmm.
That's what solves crimes.
Absolutely.
Getting out there and asking questions, digging and not taking no for an answer. And, if you're wrong, you're wrong. But I'm lucky. I will say in my 30 years, I never was wrong about a case I worked. And I'm not patting myself on the back, but I did have this uncanny ability to read a crime scene.
Well,
and understand what was going on.
Yeah, and that's a gift, and that's what made you so good at what you did, and why there are so many officers across the metro that say they learned from you and that you were one of the greatest.
I don't know about that, but it was just an instinct. I just had a good gut instinct.
That's what makes a good cop.
Pardon me?
I said that's what makes a good cop.
I think so. Yeah. And I go back. It's not the best lessons are the ones you learn, not the ones you're taught. Right. And I learned a lot of lessons.
And this case seems to have had some of those in it.
Yeah. I just there like I said, there was I worked. I can't count the number of murders that I worked. It's way up in the hundreds, and a lot of them were simple, but a lot of them were the real whodunits and stuff like that. And there's a couple out there still wandering around today that I wish, we could have gone a little further on.
Well, so your homework until we see you again is to be thinking of what the next story is that you want to tell.
I've already got it because
good.
excuse me. The last one I talked to you about was the suspect, met his justice.
Yes.
And that was another good case.
Well, we'll be bringing him back soon, obviously, like we do. Charlie is one of our favorites, and we just want to thank all of you for joining us as well. If you watched, if you're listening, whatever like that, we're so grateful for you because you're the reason that we do this. It's also fun to hear the details. But thank you for watching. Daniel Anderson and Audio Alchemy are the producers of this podcast. If you need a podcast, he's the guy. We have merch. We have social media of all kinds. Look us up. Follow us on YouTube. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. Anyway, thank you for joining us. We will see you guys next week. Goodbye.